Hello, everyone, and welcome to a pivot point here in the semester. I call it a pivot point because, as you can probably see, we are now in Photoshop. We are not in Lightroom anymore. This next project that we're going to sort of embark on, Project 5, is going to consist of a couple things. It's going to consist of a final product meaning a set of files you're going to hand in, but it's also going to be a set of exercises. Those are going to account for some of the points in this project. And these exercises are going to help us get used to Photoshop and sort of understand how digital collage works. This is the one point in the semester where we do digital collage, where we sort of take imagery and sort of mess with it, copy, paste, sort of have a little more fun with it in terms of less traditional ways of making photographs. Okay, just so you know, you're likely going to be using photographs from your previous projects as the source material for this coming project. You will get that portion of the project, meaning sort of what you're going to hand in, etc., next week. This week we're going to sort of concentrate on the sort of technical side of things in terms of how we get digital collage done. We're going to be using this motel.tiff image that I'm going to provide for you. And again, please note that Project 5 will consist partly of sort of a graded kind of exercise here. With this motel image, we're going to do part of it this week and part of it next week. And then the second part of sort of the graded portion of this is going to be your creative work in terms of what you've done with digital collage. So again, you will get the project, meaning what you're going to do creatively, what you're going to hand in next week. This week, concentrate on this motel.tiff image. Okay, so what do we need to know? First of all, we need to know what Photoshop is. Photoshop is a photo editing program. It's more sort of geared towards digital collage. For many, many years, Photoshop was the sort of standard in terms with dealing with photographs in photography. Lightroom has come along, and that's what we've been using to deal with more larger amounts of images, cataloging them, and sort of doing edits in Lightroom that are more sort of straight photographic, meaning that we're not necessarily doing collage, we're not necessarily altering an image to a degree that we can here in Photoshop. Okay, so one other thing to note is that Lightroom and Photoshop work interchangeably, meaning that often you can sort of open up an image from Lightroom, edit it in Photoshop, and then bring it back into Lightroom. Adobe makes both of these products, and they're both very important to photography. We're going to have some fun, as I keep sort of saying, in terms of digital collage, and we're going to sort of get to know how we work in collage and in Photoshop with this motel image. What is very important to understand as you sort of head into making collage is this idea of what's called selections. I'm going to sort of do a series of collections, and you guys are going to do these as well and hand them in. And I'm going to sort of check that you did them correctly. Okay, so first thing we need to do is sort of get to know Photoshop. Please note that your version of Photoshop might look slightly different. It's sort of how these things lay out per computers. If you can't find anything, please let me know. The toolbox over here and the menus up here should be the same. They might look slightly different. Your background might be black. This is just slight variations in the versions of Photoshop, but you should be able to sort of understand what I'm doing here. Okay. First and foremost, we need to sort of understand what a selection is. Before I start into that, I want to sort of give you an idea of where we're headed. The selections are going to be things we're doing this week, and then next week we're going to be dealing with copying and pasting and creating collage with this same motel image. So save the version that you guys hand in at the end of this exercise because it's going to be very important for next week. Okay. Now, a selection in Photoshop is basically saying, hey, I want to sort of deal with just this portion of the image. Over here in Photoshop, and I'm assuming you have your motel.tiff image open in Photoshop. Over here on the left-hand side, we have all these different tools. Do not be scared by these tools. We're not going to use a ton of them. We're going to use some of them. And in particular, we're going to be using these selection tools. Up here at the top, you have what's called your rectangular marquee tool. It should look like a dotted rectangle or square. Anytime in the Photoshop toolbox you see a small black triangle in the bottom right hand corner, it means that there are other tools underneath there. So if you don't see rectangular marquee tool, you might click, hold, and sort of find that. Now what I'm going to do is make a selection. So by making a selection, I simply come over to the image. I'm going to click, hold, and draw. Click, hold, and draw. Pardon me, there we go. My computer took a second to wake up there. Now, I'll do that again, just because the first time I messed up. Click, hold, and draw. The goal of this exercise and what we're going to be doing is selecting this motel sign accurately, meaning sort of we want to sort of cut it out. That'd be sort of easiest way to think about it. Now, a selection often sort of thought of, and you can see it right here, this white and black dotted line is often called sort of the dancing ants. That's a way a selection is sort of denoted in Photoshop, and it's an important way to make a selection. Now, if you haven't sort of grasped what a selection is yet, you might sort of see what a selection is. If I were to make a selection and go up to something like Image, Adjustments, and I'm going to just choose Hue and Saturation, and I can affect just that area of the photograph. Okay, you'll see I've made the selection, and just that portion of the photograph is sort of being manipulated. Okay, what I want to end up doing is sort of selecting the motel sign. Now, this rectangular marquee tool isn't very accurate. This shape is not rectangular. It's not something that is going to be done well via this this tool. However, all these selection tools that I'm going to show you sort of work together, and they work together quite well in terms of kind of helping each other out. So you might, despite the fact that this rectangular marquee tool isn't all that accurate right now, it might become sort of interesting later. Now, what I want to sort of show you in relation to this rectangular marquee tool is how we can then alter it. Okay, you'll see, and you may or may not see it, I'm going to wiggle it there, my sort of crosshairs. If I hold down, and I am on a Mac, so I'm going to hold down Option, and you'll see a little minus appear. Okay, you may or may not see that. You should be able to see it on the screen. A minus appear. When I'm holding down my Option key, and then I can sort of select out areas. Okay, so if we think about the fact that selecting the motel sign is sort of our goal, we can get more and more accurate by selecting out certain areas. Okay, those of you who are on PCs, I think it's Alt. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I don't work on PCs, but try Alt, Command, or one of those. While you have your rectangular marquee, you should see a minus appear. Okay, so I'm just sort of honing in and making a better selection of this thing. Again, this tool not the best in terms of getting this, irregular shape selected. However, as you'll sort of see as we go through this video, it's going to become important that we sort of understand that tool. Okay, so I'm going to get my selection to about right here. Again, not great, but okay for where we're sort of headed with this. And what I want to do is what's called save the selection. These selections can be kind of temperamental. You'll see if I click away, I just clicked away, it went away. Okay, that's not a good thing. We might want to sort of deal with this selection later. We might want to change it. We might want to use it. So what I'm going to do, and what I want you to do, is go to Select, Save Selection, and under this Save Selection window, we basically have a few choices. One is where we're going to save it. This is motel.tiff. That's where I want to save it. And then I just want to name this Marquee. Okay, that's spelled M-A-R-Q-U-E-E. Okay, so I'm just going to name this marquee tool, or just marquee, and I hit OK. Now you'll notice that if I do what's called deselect by going to select, deselect, if I go to now to select load selection, I can choose this marquee and it will load that thing up for me. Okay, so this is a file that can be sort of saved and sort of dealt with later and adjusted accordingly. Okay. Now, next thing we want to do is deal with a more accurate way to make a selection. Okay. There are other ways to make selections, and you can play with them if you want. There's the lasso tool, where you can sort of draw around something. Again, slightly better, but not great. But I'm going to use what's called something that's called a quick mask. Okay, and this is a much more visual and much more accurate way to make a selection. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to select load selection. I'm going to load up that marquee. Okay, if you already have your marquee up there, meaning these dancing ants, you can just sort of leave it as so. Okay, but I want to make sure you've saved that marquee selection. Okay. Down here at the bottom of your toolbar, of your toolbox, you should see a little rectangle that has a circle in the middle. When you roll over it, as you do a lot of things in Photoshop, it sort of introduces itself with a little yellow window. I'm trying to get mine to do it. There we go. And it says Edit in Quick Mask Mode. Okay, I'm going to double click on that. Okay, and I get this window. Okay, so watch. Let me do that again. Actually, just double click on it. There we go. And you should get something that looks like this. Quick Mask Options. I want you to make sure you have it as color indicates selected areas. What this means is that it's going to put this red color, okay, or you can actually click on this, or you might have a different color. You can choose whatever color you want. You're generally speaking choosing a color that's not actually in the image or is less likely to be in the image, so I'm going to choose a red here, and the opacity at 50. Okay, so the color indicates the selected areas, and the color should be something funky like this pink, and it should be at 50%. Okay, I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to go back to this button, and I'm going to just sort of click once, click again, click once, click again. You'll see that this acts like a toggle. What happens when I click it once is it toggles to the red showing where the selection is. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see this pretty well. Position this a little bit better. So you'll see as I toggle that it's showing my selection with a bit of red. This red is not something that's in the picture. If you had a color printer and you went to File, Print, it's not going to print red. It's simply a visual representation of this selection. We worked with those masks in Lightroom where we sort of adjusted a particular area. This is very, very similar. Okay, I'm going to stop the video. These videos have 15-minute limits, so I'm going to stop it real quick and start up on a new one, sort of a part 2 where we're going to sort of finish up this selection. So hold tight.